The Fujicast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Kev, I feel like we're in another lockdown. I mean, I know we're not in a lockdown, but we get to January, February, and as a wedding photographer for many, many years, January and February is essentially like a lockdown. But you've got one coming up on Saturday.
I have. Yeah.
Back in the saddle.
Back in the saddle.
Yeah. Oh, don't talk about start. So back in the saddle on Saturday. Where are you?
I'll ask me that again tomorrow.
Yeah, but mind you, by Monday you'll have done it.
I don't. Yes. Okay. Ask me that again 3 days ago.
One booking till May, and he's got no idea.
I don't know. Basically, I don't think it's. I think it's drivable. I hope it's drivable.
It better be. Don't go finding out that now it's in France or something.
Yeah, we're definitely in that.
Dear.
No.
How are you feeling about doing European weddings now?
Well, we can't go, can we? You can't actually shoot. I've been rejecting all my. Well, not that I've had many in the last couple of years, but basically until no Brexit's here, we don't have the rights to go.
So you're not going to try and get the visas or work permits on it? No. I mean, I don't know if that's even possible because it's nigh on impossible to do that in America. Absolutely nigh on impossible. And I'm not of the I'm of the opinion that if you go and pretend you're a tourist, then you're welcome to the rubber hand. So I kind of wouldn't bend the rules like that. And in Europe, I actually don't know what the rules are, to be totally honest with you. All I know is that you can't just go and shoot there now, and you even need a carnet just to move your equipment and everything. I tell you what, I don't want to be meeting Mr. Rubber Hand.
The Fujicast.
Not quite sure. Yeah.
He's pretty angry.
Right, well, let's move on swiftly now that I worked out exactly what you mean by that. Welcome to the Fujicast, you and your questions from the mailbag. The mailbag is a bit slim this week, but you've been performing well through the Facebook group, so that's great. So that keeps the questions alive. We got a book of the week this week, Kev.
Yeah.
Book of the week. Well, what is book of the week?
Book of the week is, hang on.
It's a biggie.
It's remember we had Parker Pfister on the show?
Yeah.
It's his book.
Oh, fantastic.
It's called Of Solitude.
Right. Oh, well. Did he send that one to you, or did you buy that with your own cash, Kev?
I bought it with my own cash.
Good.
However, he did do a very nice inscription.
Did he? That's nice. What did he write? I'm intrigued at what people write.
He wrote, hang on, this is a funny shaped book. He wrote, for Kevin, keep inspiring the world, my friend. Stay in wonder.
Perfect. All right, so that's the book of the week. And also this week we have a guest, and it will be Mark Condon. Dipping back into our archive this week, we're both big fans of Shotkit.com, which is run by Mark, and I managed to grab a conversation a couple of years back with Mark, just prior to COVID, in Sydney, where he was living at the time. If you've never heard of Shotkit before, it's a fabulous site where you can just rub your knees a tad as you peek inside the camera bags of talented photographers from around the world. Right. Do you want to go with Facebook first?
Yeah, we got quite a few in Facebook, so we're doing all right there.
Good.
Paul Cashman, one of my best friends in school was called Michael Cashman.
Yeah.
Kevin Neal, great show, yada, yada.
Hang on, wasn't Michael Cashman an actor?
Actor, yes.
Was he the EastEnders guy?
He was.
You went to school with him?
No.
Oh.
There's more than one Michael Cashman in the world. In fact, there's more than one in the UK.
Well, I believe that, but I thought for a moment it could be the Michael Cashman.
No.
Oh, right, okay.
No, it's the Michael Cashman.
Oh, right.
The Michael Cashman that you're thinking about on EastEnders is not the Michael Cashman that I'm thinking of.
Is he not? No, well, yeah. In his world he is, but just not yours.
Correct,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Having ordered the Annie Leibovitz's book Wonderland, I was wondering if a photography book comes in a sleeve or a box, would you keep the box or the sleeve? Happy New Year.
I'd always keep the box.
Yeah, if it's a presentation box for it, if it's part of the artwork, definitely. But if you're just referring to the box that came in from Amazon, then no, recycle that bad boy.
Oh, always recycle the Amazon boxes.
But yeah, if it's in a sleeve or a like a kind of flip fold box or something like that, then yeah, absolutely. Why would you not keep that? Yeah. For sure.
I'm coming around to your way of thinking with boxes to a degree.
Good.
Yeah, but I'm not entirely there yet, Kev.
You can see my my appetite for talking about boxes is about as low as
I know.
my alcohol intake for January.
Mine too. Mine too. Don't worry. Did you say alcohol? How's that going so far?
And I don't miss it at all.
Who was it that I heard from during the week that said it was Terry Price, good old Terry. Terry said we were just exchanging a couple of emails, and he said, "Could Kev please send me anything that's left in his cupboard that's alcoholic that he doesn't want anymore?"
Oh, there's nothing left. Sorry.
Well, you did
sorry,
suggest.
Terry.
I can't believe you really hoovered out all the cupboards on New Year's Eve. Did you really do that?
Yeah, absolutely. No. But although we didn't have that much in the house, I have to say, because we weren't there for Christmas Day.
No.
We weren't there for Boxing Day, and the kids had finished all of their wine, and it was just mine and Gemma's left.
I bet you'll start finding those little bottles that you get on airliners in bags that you haven't used for ages because you haven't been on a flight. Oh, look, Gemma, I found 8 gin bottles.
No, that just definitely won't happen.
Bathe in it, Mullins, bathe in it.
Or what's more likely to happen is Gemma might say, "Oh, look, here's a bag that used to have gin bottles in it that I found a couple of weeks ago."
And how's she doing with it? Is she good with it?
Yeah, fine. She's not completely not doing it. I mean, when she goes out and stuff, she's having a drink. But yeah, it's fine. It's all good.
Good.
And actually, it's making. Yeah, I just feel a lot better, I have to say.
Yeah. Sleep patterns
are much better according to my watch, according to my Huawei. And yeah, in fact, we've got a new mattress being delivered today. Funny enough, mattresses, flipping heck, they're expensive.
They can be, Kev. Yeah. When was the last time you bought one? About 15 years. You're supposed to replace them every 5 or 6, aren't you?
Oh, well, I am replacing this every 5 or 6 years. It's like a mini mortgage. I'd rather sleep on the bloody floor.
Well, if I was to tell you what can be found in mattresses over 5 years old, you'd want to get rid of them. Every 2, Kev.
Yeah, no, I do know that. We've had the one we've had now. We must have had 7 years. I would say
it'll be singing.
But it's very good. It was very good. But now it's time to go to the great mattress place in the sky.
You can't exactly part exchange them either, can you? Jgrapher wrote to us. Where's .th, Kev?
Where's what?
Where's .th?
.th.
You get .com.co.uk. I've got .th here.
Oh, I see. Isn't it Thailand?
Oh, is that Thailand? Right, okay. Message, not my expectation, but simply would like to pitch some ideas for your expert response. Now, this came in just before all the rumour stuff started with the XH2, but not everybody's read that rumour stuff, so let me read through this. With Fujifilm having X-mount cine lenses, it seems like they're still lacking a camera body to really use it to its intended purpose. Side tangent is... Same criticism to the 200mm f2 lens that's built for action wildlife but lacking a body to use it properly. This leaves room for the XH2. Should it be built bigger, let's say something like and these are points that he's making, you might have some thoughts about them, Kev, like a Canon C200 that benefits from audio ports. Well, we've always said, both of us, haven't we, that it would be lovely to have audio ports on something, but XLR audio ports, not sure, Kev. Bit big, aren't they?
Yeah, although there's isn't it? I don't know who it's Rode or somebody like that is making a plug-in adapter to the hot shoe for Fuji X series that you can have XLR in direct into the
I'm not
the memory card.
Trying to think of the way that the pins work with XLRs. I could well be wrong here, Kev, and there's somebody with a much larger forehead than me that would know the answer to this. But I can't understand how the balanced input would work through a hot shoe.
God knows.
Yeah, well, that's as I say, for a long forehead.
Ask me to multiply 3 times Pythagoras theorem. I've got more chance.
Can you do that?
Understanding the answer to that.
Can you do that for me now?
No, I can't do that either.
Okay. Number 2, Blackmagic 6K with a large touch screen for video. Is there likely to be a larger touch screen on it, do you think? What are the rumours about the screen on the back?
Oh God, I have honestly no idea about the rumours. Obviously I read the rumours, and so the only thing that I've picked up from the rumours is there's likely to be 2 versions of the XH2, if the rumours are true. But other than that, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Trouble is, with making a big touchscreen though, that would make that a big camera, and that comes away from that whole point of the ethos of Fujifilm, doesn't it? I wouldn't expect the bodies to be different. I think it will be sensor size difference. I don't think they're going to be going down the route of doing like a C200, because if they did that, they wouldn't call it an XH2. They'd call it an
FV1 or something. If it's a dedicated movie camera. Not, and we're only we're only supposing from the rumors at the moment. I think at best, if the rumors are true and there's two cameras, two versions of the XH2, then it would be sensor size differences and a few, like kind of shutter speed and perhaps that kind of stuff, rather than a difference in the actual physical camera.
Well, Jay Gruffer did write here as well a couple of other thoughts about having things like internal ND filters like the X100V. Body dials on the body that will benefit the video shooter or just better for the hybrid shooter, switching from photo to video quickly. So anyway, he says, thank you for entertaining the crazy idea. Well, I don't think they're crazy ideas at all. We shall send them on.
Yeah, I mean, they're not crazy ideas at all, but the actual fact is, if Fujifilm made a dedicated film camera, which is what he's referring to, like a C200 dedicated movie thing, I don't think it would sell, to be totally honest with you, because, who's going to move from a very well-equipped, very well-functioning Canon, Blackmagic, ARRI system to a brand new Fujifilm system that's embryonic, brand new, and it's not their it's not their background. I just don't think it would work. No. I have to say, and that's what he's referring to. He's referring to creating a camera that is basically a dedicated movie camera, and not a stills camera like the C200. What's that at now? That must be at like C600 by now, I would imagine.
Well, no, it went. Well, there's a 700, which is the best part of I think about £30,000. I don't know too much about the cinema range. It's a while since I had the Canon cinema cameras.
Well, you lent me your C100 once when I needed to record a music concert and I needed full-length footage.
Yeah.
And it was like a little bloody spaceship in my hands, all those buttons and dials.
I found, by the way, Michael Cashman, the other Michael Cashman. He's a member of the House of Lords now.
Is he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Michael,
I'm pretending to be interested.
Michael, really? No, well, I think it's fascinating how he's LGBT rights activist and actor, Labour member of the European Parliament for the West Midlands constituency from 1999 till he stood down in 2014.
Yeah, was he was gay, wasn't he? I can't remember whether
I think he was, and this is one of those moments you don't want to be getting it entirely wrong, Kev, but I'm pretty sure he was in a scene that featured the first same-sex kiss on certainly a British soap opera.
Yeah, I remember that.
Organisation founded Stonewall as well. So.
Oh, he founded Stonewall?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, well, that is a big thing. That's probably more impressive than being in EastEnders, if you ask me.
Yeah, no, EastEnders sort of came to mind straight away. Then I didn't realise, of course, all his political stuff. Anyway, moving on. Question then from, for those in America thinking, what? Hey, you've left me behind. Question from the Facebook group.
Okay, this is quite a big one. Michael Dries. Let's just say Michael. Michael, hi Kev, hi Neil, Happy New Year. I'm wondering how you feel about the ergonomics of the new X-series camera bodies. It appears that they are heading towards a more minimalistic style with more reliance on touchscreen swipes. I love that word, swipes. Yeah. I love the layout of the X100F and I'm happy with the XT3 and XT30 as well. Personally, I enjoy the D-pad and the focus knob together. This setup allows me to gain quick access to functions I use frequently. The X100V looks like a great update, but I don't like some of the choices in the new layout. Am I alone in preferring the layouts of the last generation camera? Appreciate your thoughts. Looking forward to a great 2022. Just received some great news on a health issue. Your show was a great diversion during some difficult times. I'm a big believer in the mindfulness of photography. Thanks for your hard work. Great community you have created. Well done. Ooh, kaboosh. There we go.
Well, first of all, Michael, I'm glad those health problems, you've got some good news on them. That's good. The X100V, Kev, I know people have said this, haven't they, that they're sort of uncomfortable between the changes when the F went to the V. I've never really felt that. Although whenever anything is a touchscreen, I turn my touchscreens off immediately, and I think you do as well, don't you? I
don't use touchscreen, but that doesn't mean that they don't get used. They are extremely popular features.
No, I know.
Extremely popular. Yeah. It's just because we're old school, I think. We don't tend not to use it.
I like buttons.
I love what they did with the X100V. I love the minimalistic approach. I love it. Absolutely love it. I never, D-pads for me are not, I don't miss that whatsoever. The only thing that there's one thing on the XT4 that really, really annoys me constantly still is they removed the metering collar. So you can no longer choose spot metering. Oh my God, it's way too early. You can no longer choose between metering modes on the collar on the top. You have to assign it to a function button.
It's way too. It's 6:30 in the evening when we're recording this. Have a drink, Kev.
The thing is, there's always going to be. You can't have a new camera that's identical to the previous one. And just, from a marketing point of view, it just wouldn't make sense. And I think with the X100V, they made a very brave statement. They put that flip screen in it, which I was very much against.
Yeah.
They really minimalized it. They gave the camera some more hard lines, more of a kind of, I don't know, less retro finish to it, if you ask me. And that was one of the things that I discussed when we were going through that process. Will it still be seen as this this retro looking camera? And it is still, but it's in my mind a little less still. But actually, it's probably the most beautiful version they've made. It has to be said. In the hands, it's very easy to use. The less clutter on the back of the camera for me, the better. I've always said that I just prefer, a camera that just has a shutter button and the 3 dials. Boom.
We're getting closer.
The smaller it is, the better.
Yeah, getting closer to it then, Kev, with this.
The X100V, I think so. So, obviously your mileage may vary. Everybody has different opinions. But they're not gonna keep the same. If you look at the X100V compared to the original X100, especially the menu system, it's like, I don't know. What? It's like comparing my first wife to my second wife.
Oh, don't start that.
I know that's an awful thing to say, isn't it?
It is really. Who was your favourite? Oh, careful. Actually, on the V front, this is probably a good time to mention Mark Dell. He's got a sort of hotline to us now, Kev. He wrote in again just a few days ago. I've sold my V, he said.
Foolish man.
Foolish. I decided that the camera, though, he said, it was somewhat too easy to produce. Now, get this as a reason. Too easy to produce a great photograph, and at times somewhat clinical for my tastes. I've ventured into my loft and dusted down, well, not actually, as it was in its original box, Kevin, my very first Fujifilm camera, the venerable Fujifilm FinePix X100, once again is being used. It's still amazing what I seem to get from this beautiful sensor, as it's the Bayer original. My blog title has been changed, and the V was posted to its new owner only today, so there's no going back. Now, was the blog to do with V? I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah. I'm approaching 60 next month, and I feel happier taking this little classic out these days. Maybe it's an age thing. So from now on, it's working alongside my XF10, and I feel that's all I need. I may even reject my smartphone and go over to a phone that just does calls and texts. I've turned off all notifications to my Google Pixel 5 as an experiment. I think that a distraction-free, more mindful approach is what I seem to be craving for. And the original X100 fits that brief. Oh, blimey.
Yeah. I can't argue with any of that, really. I mean, the X100V to X100, it's going to do exactly what he's hoping it to do. And I can't. Like a
vintage car, you may have to drive it a little bit differently from time to time, and you'll find it a bit annoying that when you're reversing at Tesco that it hasn't got powered steering. But apart from that, he sent me a picture. It's a lovely picture, very nice. Do you remember smartphones that just did calls and text messages, Kev?
Yeah, well, I remember before they even did text messages.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, yeah,
yeah, they do.
A friend of mine had the big brick thing. And we all thought
the battery in a suitcase.
That's the one. It was huge. We always used to think, "God, you're so posh," and it turned out he put this thing on a table. It was a proper statement, wasn't it? If ever there was a yuppie thing, that was it, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was definitely it. We had a friend also. He worked in finance, and it must have been in our placement of university. Because we were still in university, and we'd all come. All of our friends from university had come up to my then girlfriend's place in Windsor. We're having a bit of a weekend, and then he came in with this great big phone, and it was enormous. He had his weekend bag, which was smaller than this battery that he was carrying for his phone. And we were all like, what the hell's that? And like, oh yeah, just in case work calls. Bearing in mind, we were university placement students and it was Saturday, and he was working in, I don't know, some kind of low-level banking job. I was like,
you never know. You never.
They're not going to call, are they?
I never quite understood how you ever got a signal.
They had massive aerials, didn't they?
Well, I know they had massive aerials, but there wasn't really much of a network, was there? If anything.
Yeah, pass. Don't know.
Well,
anyway.
But could you turn off all your notifications?
He never got a call.
No, but I'm sure he didn't. Could you turn off all your notifications? Wouldn't that be a good experiment for a week? Turn all notifications off.
Yeah, I've toyed with this idea like several times. Okay, so basically my plan when my current phone dies is to go downwards rather than upwards because I don't have a contract. And my Huawei did die before Christmas. But the charging port went. So I then had to get I got a Samsung, only a cheap 125 quid Samsung phone from Vodafone. Yeah. It was appalling. It was the most annoying thing I've ever had in my entire life in terms of tech. So I actually paid to have my Huawei repaired instead because I love that phone so much. But my plan was always when I needed to get a new phone is to, just get one of those little things you get from W.H. Smith, a burner phone.
A burner phone, Kev? But
a burner phone. Disposable phones that crooks get.
Yeah, no, that's the burner phone is the connotation, really. Gemma, do you know he's got a burner phone? Yes, I know.
The only thing, I've actually thought about this quite seriously. The only thing I would really, because you can do things like Instagram and stuff now on the website. So you don't, there's not that many phone dependent apps. The only thing that really concerns me now is COVID passes for getting into the rugby. My banking app is quite useful for when I'm in the co-op and it tells me I've got no money left and I have to go and transfer some money from Gemma's account. That kind of stuff is the thing that I think I would struggle with.
FaceTime? FaceTime?
No, because I got a proper phone. Don't use FaceTime. So use WhatsApp. But yeah, it's the same thing. WhatsApp. Yeah, chatting to my mum on WhatsApp video. So there's really not much, I think, apart from the convenient stuff. But things like the NHS COVID pass, I think that's going to be with us for quite a long time, and we'll need that to get into places, won't we? So anyway, you can print them out. I don't know, but whatever. It's very hypothetical, isn't it? Because probably what will happen when that phone dies is I'll get super excited about buying a new or singing, dancing one. Oh,
I don't know how I can live without playing Angry Birds. I've got to have Angry Birds on there. Right, next one. Facebook.
Kant Ratod. Happy New Year, Fujicast guys and girls. Neil and Kevin, this is a stab in the dark, but do you think Fujifilm would ever consider a stills-only camera? Oh, the irony. Stripped down to the basics such as aperture control, ISO, exposure compensation, and shutter speed. I have the Expo 3 and X100V and only use these functions. Many thanks.
What do you think, Kev? You're closer to the inner circle.
No, they won't.
No.
And basically the reason for that is because it costs exactly the same to make. And so why would they not have the video functions in there for people that might want to use it? No.
Just don't use the video functions.
Yeah, just don't use it. Switch it off. Yeah. Don't touch it. Ignore that menu.
Right, let's hear from this week's guest. And as I said, it's from our archive this week. As we approach 3 years of shows, we want to share some of the fabulous guests we've had on the show, with a new season of guests coming up too. Profiles on shotkit.com, myself and Kev, a little dated now. Timely reminder for an update perhaps, but if you haven't heard of Shotkit before, this is a website where you can do that thing you probably wouldn't dare do or ask in person. Excuse me, insert name of photographer here. Don't suppose you'd mind sending me a couple of shots of your camera bag, would you? As I said, a couple of years back, I managed to take a walk with Mark Condon, who is the brains behind a site which thousands of photographers follow. Shotkit.com, where you can, quote, peek inside the camera bags of talented photographers from all around the world. I took a sunny afternoon's walk with him on Sydney's harbour side in view of the Opera House, in the time prior to all this talk of deporting tennis stars. Here's Mark from Shotkit.com.
So Shotkit was, it's around 2014, early 2014, and I decided to make I was just whenever I read a magazine, there'd always be like a flat lay of products. Like, this is what you need to be taking on holiday. It's essentially what they want to try and sell you, but they're always really neatly laid out images of gadgets.
Yeah.
And there's something about that I really liked, just the editorial aspect of it, and also, I don't know, just seeing what people are supposed to have or what's useful for the average guy, whatever it was. And then so I thought, I want to make a website about that, not for photographers, but for just anything. And I think
So initially it wasn't going to be just photography?
No, I think I got a domain name like Inside My Bag or something, and I thought this could be applied to, you know, school kids with their school bags, tennis players, fishermen, just anyone who has a bag that's got something useful.
Oh, a fishing version would be huge.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Hang on, let me go and register that name.
Yeah.
Fish bag.
Fish bag. Tackle bag.
Tackle bag.
Anyway, I messed around with that and it didn't work, and it was too big, the project. There was too many elements involved, and then I just forgot about it for a few months. And then I came back to it, and I was so stupid. It didn't even occur to me that I should be focusing on just one niche that I'm interested in. And I think my wife was just like, yeah, why don't you just do photography? And I, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, the more I thought about it, it was like, well, yeah, that's exactly what I did. As soon as I decided, I want to do wedding photography, it was Jonas Peterson's work I came across first. Around that time, he was sort of all over wedding photography because he just won some awards.
Yeah.
He just had a bit of a different kind of style in those days, I guess. Because I had no idea about camera gear, then the first step is, okay, well, I need the gear that this guy's using to shoot the photo. That's, you know, I want to cook a nice meal, I need the same frying pan as that chef. Yeah. Makes no sense, but yeah, that's how the idea came about. Well, I want to look at other people's camera bags, maybe someone else does as well.
Was it difficult to get people on board to understand what you were trying to achieve?
Before that I was working in online marketing as a copywriter, and I worked with like graphic designers, and I was in that kind of space, so maybe it was because of that, but I kind of felt that if I didn't have something concrete-ish to show the photographers that look good, then it will be very hard for them to prove to them, you know, it's worth spending 2 hours of your day putting this together for me. So yeah, I mocked up like how their page would look. I'd put their name in the, you know, big on there, and just made it look pretty close to what it looks today, just one page, and I'm like, this is what it's going to look like. And then yeah, I just blanket emailed maybe 200 photographers. And then when people started replying, I'd send me a message out saying, oh, you know, Jonas is on board, or blah, blah, blah. Ironically, Jonas said yes. This was back in 2014. I think he said yes every year, and then now he just doesn't reply, and he's never actually been on the site.
It's kind of turned on its head now, isn't it? Because I would imagine, like any good idea, when it really takes root and people then understand what you're trying to achieve with it, then they want you.
Yeah, I like to think that Shotkit's kind of known in a certain, yeah, in the photography world. Not as much as I would like it to be. Yeah, without sounding big-headed, I do think it's a really useful resource in terms of not just looking at gear, but just seeing how other photographers feel about the gear that they're using as well.
Have you noticed kit's changed? That mirrorless has become more prevalent, or any particular brand is favoured?
Yeah, it's a slow transition to mirrorless. I'd say start of this year I've been receiving more.
So there's 23 categories now. So I've noticed that's one thing that has grown.
Yeah, I'd love that to be unlimited. Like, just if someone sends me if they're a professional bridge photographer, I'll make a new category.
Are there any scalps, I'm going to call them scalps, I'm not sure it's the right word or not, that you're particularly proud to have on there?
I had an interview with Albert Watson. And yeah, my ignorance, I hadn't heard of him before, a week before I had the interview. Like I came across his work, and I reached out, and then I was surprised that his secretary was all over it, and he was like, yeah, what do you want from him? And I reached out for just a Shotkit feature, like talk about his gear, and then I realized that's a bit short-sighted. There's so much more you could talk about.
Albert Watson, yeah.
Yeah, and we had a phone interview, and he was lovely, and that's actually buried on the site. I need to revive it because it's evergreen, like it's as relevant now, and it's really, yeah, it was great insight. He talked about the Jagger photo, the jobs, everything.
It's a great way to find photographers' work you may not have found otherwise. I'll give you an example, Nikki Boone.
Right.
So Nikki's work is superb. But from New Zealand. I dare say that there are lots of photographers that will never have heard of Nicky Boone, whose work is just amazing. So in terms of resource, it's great for that Shotkit, isn't it?
I'd say the first 2 years I wanted to get like famous photographers on there, and I thought, people want to see what XYZ, what he's using. But then after that, I was there's so many photographers that people had never heard of and probably never will, and I wanted to get those people on the site.
When you look at the site and you look at and we'll come to the resources section in a minute, because that's, I think, as relevant now as just looking at people's kit. But sticking with the kit for a second, there seems to be a format. Lay them out on the floor. There's a lot of wooden floorboards, a lot of melamine on there. But I noticed some people, D2 photography, put a table tennis table in there, and Jeff Newsom's one looks like a murder scene. Did you take that photo?
There's a short story behind that one.
Tell me about that one then.
So Jeff, I've been clamouring to get. And I went to his workshop. He had one in Sydney, and that was my game, to go to his workshop, meet him in person, and then seduce him to be on my site. And he's a lovely guy, and he's the kind of person that you could email him 10 times and he'd ignore every single one of them, but then he'd be first to come up to you and say hello to you in a bar. Yeah, he's a lovely guy, and I ended up giving him a lift down to meet his wife, and I was like, hey, let's do this thing. You're never going to have time to do it on your own. You've ignored all my emails. And he's laughing, and he's like, I don't reply. And then he's like, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, well, just pretend it's a murder scene or something, and he's just laid on the floor, threw his stuff out, and then I did like a little video interview of him.
But is there a format then that you prefer people to stick to? It's got to be a fairly simple backdrop. You don't want people being too complex.
Exactly, that was one thing that I've kept the whole way through, and it's a very regimented, If people send me their gear shot and it's not good enough, even if their photos are amazing, I get them to redo it.
How do the pro photographers benefit from being on there, do you think?
It's a bit of a corny word, but exposure. So you've come across Nicky Boone's work, you wouldn't have otherwise. And maybe you'll hire her in the future, maybe you'll send her, link to one of your friends. So there's that. X thousand people visiting the site a day, you're probably going to get your work in front of a few new eyeballs. There's just the sense of community that you're helping out other photographers by showing them a little bit of behind the scenes.
So let's talk about the resources side, because that is a strong part of the site now.
I don't have any kind of plan when I write, no kind of editorial calendar or anything fancy where I know where I'm heading with all these posts usually. These were just things that I wrote that I thought, this is really interesting to me and useful, so I just write on something that I thought would help someone else. The travel tips was one of them. Like, I was doing a lot of destination weddings and finding that it was not all it was cracked up to be, and you had to think of loads of things that probably you wouldn't have to if you're just traveling with your family. Like the inside my bag thing's great and all, but I don't think, if you come to the site a few times, then maybe you want to look for something else as well on there.
So how do people contact you and get involved in the site? I know not everybody can, because you've still got to, you're a professional, and there's a certain level that you've got to achieve to be on the site, or is that not true?
It's a difficult one, because I have my own taste of photography style, so I have to remove that subjectivity, but what I want is a very nice gear shot, a well-written, just a piece that describes how they use the gear. I don't want people to be intimidated by the submission process, I guess, and also just being on the site. I know that one way they might be intimidated is seeing people using a lot of gear. I'm no advocate about using a minimal setup or a lot of gear. I'm not really, whatever works for you. Like, I encourage everyone to try and send in their submission, or just send me a link to your work. Like, you don't have to go through the whole submission. I don't like being the one saying, your work's not good enough, but I would be able to say, maybe, there's a lot of other wedding photographers, for example, give it a year or so or something. I don't like being that person, but if you want to submit, then go ahead.
Thanks to Mark, and we'll link to Shotkit, of course, this week in the show notes. Also in the show notes, a chance to link through and listen to Kev in Country Music Star, because on Thursday afternoons at 3:30 p.m. UK time, that's where you'll find him. Kev plays regular and alternative country on his show, taking requests too if you have something you'd really like to hear. Country Boyo, that's Mullins, with his radio show on incapableStaircase.com every Thursday, 3:30 UK time. And then this Friday on Photography Daily, the podcast, I take my photo walk just you, just me, our mailbag and our cameras. This week, coming up amongst your letters and photographs, I'm delighted to be talking to landscape legend Charlie Waite.
And when we stand there with our cameras, in whatever setting, Glencoe, doesn't matter where it is, the desert, I think we are, as photographers, we are going through a process of awe, and we need to own this extraordinary experience, and we don't know how else to do it. We could write, we're not very maybe good at that, we could poetry, yes, music, but these creative processes that occupy us so profoundly are absolutely immense, and we have to photograph.
So that's Charlie Waite on Friday on Photography Daily, the podcast, which is on all podcast platforms and at photographydaily.show as we take our weekly photo walk. Right, back to your questions. This is not so much a question, Kev, but some feedback really and a suggestion in there at the same time. Hi, Kev. Neil, just pulled... This is from Spencer Wynn. Just pulled over after hearing the question from Joel about photographing bereavement family portraits with flash. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
I've photographed over 60 bereavement portrait sessions through the American-based organisation that gifts the gift of family portraits for those who've lost a baby. I enjoy this genre of documentary photography as it's such a healing gift, and I fondly remember every family, some of whom I've gone on to photograph in happier times. I pulled over to write this because of the word flash. Whilst I am very comfortable with flash strobe, I've never used it for bereavement sessions. The bereavement sessions are highly emotional, deeply sensitive, and often with parents who are on the edge of collapse, he writes. For me, flash is an intrusion into the shared sorrow and grief that's essential for the mum and dad at the time. A flash being set off is both intrusive, not necessary. Even in the darkest NICU, there is light available from monitors and machines that are part of the story. So he offered a suggestion, a small handheld Lumicube panel or other dimmable continuous light, which would be perfect, and that's what he's used on occasion without disturbing the family. Thanks, love the show. First time writing to us as well. Spencer Wynn, thank you very much. And I see his point.
Yeah, I think we did allude to that when we had that conversation, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Who's contacting you?
Nobody.
I'm hearing the doodle-doodle-doom. Are you in trouble?
No, my phone's not even on.
Oh, no, I keep hearing doodle-doodle-doom. It's Gemma saying, you're talking about your first wife again. You're in big trouble.
Oh, no, it might be my tablet. I'm getting notifications because I've got my laptop off, but my tablet is sitting here.
Oh, I see.
So it might be doing stuff in the background.
Okay. Notifications.
Right. I can't hear it, though.
Oh, is that funny? I can.
Perhaps you're turning into a dog.
I feel like that. Oh, nobody told me that bringing up a puppy would be so... I am exhausted. I am utterly exhausted. I really am. He's in his crate at the moment in the house. He's having a bit of crate training.
Yeah. How's that going?
Not greatly, actually, Kev. But I know that otherwise he might be a bit destructive. But he's gone into... There seem to be phases, Kev. We've gone into barking at everything phase at the moment. Fortunately, not out on the road, because I can't bear it when you're walking along the road and you get a yappy type dog that yaps at other dogs all the time, constantly down the road. Fortunately, he doesn't do that. But he is barking at anything that even dares overfly the back garden. So if you're a pigeon, I think I might mention this to you the other day, if he could have an Exocet missile launcher, he'd be taking out pigeons all day long. He's just, but your two, they don't do that, do they?
No, they don't bark randomly. They do. Monty does bark at the door, though. Breezy doesn't. She just sometimes doesn't even open her eyes.
Come in.
If I came back as a dog, I want to be a whippet.
That's it. Come in, take the telly. Or while you're here, could you take the mattress out? We're getting a new one.
Yeah, and just nudge my food over a little bit closer to me. That'd be great. Thanks.
If you wouldn't mind. Don't wake me up, though. Right, questions, Facebook. Go on, then.
Kevin Rugland. Hello, Happy New Year to both of you and anyone listening or reading. Small question. I love doing street photography, but when I am visiting big cities and towns, or when I am visiting big cities and towns, but as I live in a fairly little village and everybody knows everybody, I'm afraid of being seen as a creep skulking about with my camera. Yeah. Also, we only have one street that has some activity. How would you do street photography in a small village like this?
I just think you've got to be obvious. If you'll get known as the guy that does the street photography in the village. And maybe, actually, it'll become part of village life, don't you think, Kev?
Yeah, I mean,
Embrace your inner Revilius.
I'd say, if you look at the kind of street historic photos of small villages from the past, it's not all about necessarily having to be candid. So, it could be the shopkeeper stood outside their shop or whatever. Street photography doesn't have to be 100% like you're hidden and they can't even see you on the street.
No.
And in some cases, it's almost impossible to do that, like in this kind of scenario. So, maybe change your angle a little bit. It's still storytelling. It's still documenting the period in the history of the place, but maybe make it a little less about it being 100% candid in this environment. If you see the same old woman trudging away with her shopping bag every day, and if you say hello to her every day, then maybe say, look, can I take your picture today?
Yeah.
See what happens. So yeah, it is tricky. It's the same here in Malmesbury. I never really go out photographing in Malmesbury.
Would you feel awkward doing it?
I just wouldn't do it the same way I do it in London or anywhere like that.
No.
So it would be less. Yeah, it would be much more obvious what I'm doing, kind of thing. If that makes sense.
But I think sometimes when you try to hide in the shadows, you become more obvious anyway. I remember a situation when we were working together, Kev, and there was a class you were doing. It was very inventive, but there was a shutter release cable going to the camera that this chap was holding in front of his chest. Really, I thought that's it was really good. He'd made his own, I think, his own system, and it went into his pocket. But I thought the fact that he was stood there quite motionless. The whole system worked a dream, but being stood there motionless does rather, I don't know, for me it looked more obvious that he was making pictures than not.
Yeah, I agree. You have to read the room, so to speak.
Yeah, and in your own town, you're reading your own room, I suppose. You embrace that. Yeah, well, you could say you're building a history of your own town or village. Make some cards, hand those out. They could point to a specific Insta or a blog. Maybe look very intimately at, I don't know, things like doorways and signage and the characters that you were talking about. Some of the main protagonists, like the postie or the local offie, that kind of thing. Become the photographer known for making this project, Kev. Yeah.
Yeah, probably, especially in a small place, especially if you're a known person. Yeah.
Well, get to know I've got to. I might start taking my X100V out on all the dog walks, Kev, because you get to know people. Dog walkers talk to each other. Do you talk to people when you're walking the dogs?
Do you know what? To be totally honest with you, we don't walk the dogs anymore because they go up the stables and run around like lunatics for hours on end.
Yeah.
Right. Breezy doesn't. Breezy stands there in the cold and just quivers.
I can see Breezy doing it.
Rodsy runs around like a madman. So we don't really walk dogs much these days, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. Well, you're right. It's especially here in Malmesbury. It is it's a very small place, and you do see the same people all the time. Just chat to them. Yeah.
Well, I met a guy the other day. I was walking along. I was asked the dog's name, and the guy said, "Oh, it's Leica." And I thought, "Oh, you must be a photographer." And no, do you know why the dog might be called? And do you know another famous Leica apart from the famous camera?
No.
Leica the dog, the first dog in space.
Oh.
Yeah. So he named his dog after the first dog in space. I said, that's fantastic. He said, yeah, it didn't end very well for the dog, but we don't tell him that.
I wonder if Leica the dog was named after the camera, though.
You might have thought, but no, it's spelled Laika. So different spelling, but you pronounce it, I suspect, the same way. That's why he used that pronunciation. Right. Facebook, Kev, what do we have?
J. Simonetto. Generally, we hear the back and forth between things not pro enough, then most are very much good enough. I would like to ask you guys what experience you had with something that was truly not good enough during your work. A little bit more context for me is that I would like to travel light to other countries with the family before lockdown. And though it's casual travel photos, I would still like to ensure these images are good enough for print. A balance between light travel with family, but the glass is good for print. 99% 1855 is good enough, but will the upcoming third-party lens like the Tamron zooms be the same as well? Right. So first part, basically, what did you buy that was rubbish?
I suppose the Nikon D2H, which was a 4 megawatts camera with max ISO, I think it was 1600. Pretty unusable there, though. A brick of a thing that it was. What about you, Kev? What are your what's the kit you bought that you wish you hadn't?
I don't have any kind of camera stuff like that. I mean, I don't want to get on the Apple bashing thing again, but probably that iPad that I bought, the expensive one. The dream was that you'd be able to go to weddings and edit with it and all that kind of stuff. And actually, the situation was far from the truth, especially when you had to stick the flipping pencil out the charging port at the bottom. So that was probably the least lived device with me for sure. But
who knew for Kev it was going to be an Apple product?
I did see on the Facebook group this week some other poor is trying to get his access back to his Apple system.
Oh no!
I was like, don't ask me. Whatever you do, don't talk to me about it.
A bit like Star Wars. I'm not the expert you're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, so there isn't. So that's the first part, but there was a second part.
Well, the second part was generally kind of like, is the 18 to 55 is good enough, but will the upcoming third-party lenses like Tamron zooms be the same as well?
Well, who
and
knows?
Of course, we don't know the answer to that, do we?
Until we've seen them. Yeah.
So I have no idea.
Unknown quantity.
Typically, though, with the third-party lenses aren't usually as good. They're not far off, but typically they're not going to be quite as good as the manufacturer's lens is. But who knows?
You've played with the Viltrox, haven't you?
Yeah.
And actually, you had good things to say about the Viltrox lens.
It was very good. Yeah, it definitely wasn't as good as the. What was it? What was the one I had? The 56, I think. It wasn't as good as the Fujifilm 56.
No.
But it was, half the price and certainly less than half as bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, right. Book of the week, Kev. Bought with his own fair money.
I say bought my own fair money. I did buy it with my own fair money, but it was kickstarted.
Oh, it was one of the Kickstarters.
It kicked it into life.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. Most of the books that I buy are from Kickstarter these days.
Yeah.
It's a very worthwhile cause. So Parker J. Pfister, born in 1968, is an American artist working primarily in photography and filmmaking for the last 35 years. Yeah. He attributes his curiosity and dreams, both conscious and subconscious, as the guides for the majority of his work. Most of Pfister's images are created by his long relationship with wanderlust. Pfister's ability to find connection and create trust with a complete stranger, both human and otherwise, allow his viewers to step into and truly feel his work. After all, a photograph is to be felt every bit as much as seen. Now, so we, some of you may remember we did have Parker on the FujiCast middle of last year.
Yeah, it was right.
We did the interview several years earlier, but there was all kinds of technical disasters with it, wasn't it? And I had to re-record all the questions. Do you remember?
It was rescued, wasn't it?
It was rescued. Yeah, let's just say it was rescued.
But not Parker's bit. It was just something.
No. It was my end. Yeah, absolutely.
One of the channels on. Yeah, it was a weird thing. It wasn't even your fault. It was. Oh, that was a useless piece of software. There we go. I'll refer to the last question, Kev. I can't remember. Yeah, but that was the.
We won't name the software, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. It was the software's fault, wasn't it?
The software really messed up for you,
and that was something you were paying for.
Yeah, I know.
There you go. Paying no longer. No. All right. So, so the whole point of this book essentially is it's beautiful, beautiful images with poetry and sketches and little kind of writings around images and all kinds of just general loveliness, as you would expect from Parker. Now, what you won't see in here, if you go to Parker's website and you look at his beautiful portraits that just jump out of the screen at you, some of them are quite elaborate, but they're all very beautiful. You won't see too many of those in this book. This is more about the travel, the wanderlust, as he said, and just general observations with poetry. The title being called Solitude really comes out in the images, I think, in some of the striking nature of a lot of the pictures, where it's quite clear that he's probably the only person in a very, very long distance. But yeah, nice big square hardback image, very, very creatively and cleverly curated and put together. So I don't know whether Parker was entirely responsible for that or whether he had an editorial team, but I would not be surprised if he did it himself, because he's very, very, very creative like that.
Well, he reached more than his pledge, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's amazing. When I grew up, I want to be Parker Pfister. So there's no page numbers, but so I've just flipped to a page, lovely, beautiful black and white image of a nude figure lying on the sand. Well,
is it the water's edge? Because it's difficult to see that.
No, it's not the water's edge. It's in a cliff cave, I would say.
Oh, right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It just gives you this kind of idea of thinking, But the reason why I picked that particular image was because of the poem. So I'll read the poem from that particular one. I've hit bottom. The kind that isn't a place, one that hides me and leaves me no trace. Time is measured in gains down here. Stay too long, I'll surely disappear. But don't throw a rope, I need a while longer. Along with myself, I grow even stronger. The shadows are where my ego will hide. I drag them all out until they have died. Into the light, I will fight to the death. I'll give all my heart, I'll trade in my breath. No matter the cost, this behemoth I'll slay, slaughtered and gutted, sent out on a dray. My spirit will rise when my battle is won, out of the shadows and into the sun, sword in hand and armor nearby, no longer naked to hear my own lies.
He certainly bears his soul, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because as he says, he's encountered depression and loneliness along the way of whilst experiencing freedom and strength, and he believes he's tamed this beast anxiety. Blimey, Kev.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
I like
Really
what he wrote on I was just looking at the Kickstarter page. I didn't realise also it was fully funded in one day. Not many Kickstarters say that, do they? I don't think. If you're reading this, you are alive. If you are reading this, you are also going to die. You and I are filling the space between. His work, if you go to his website, is just... I haven't looked at his work for a long, long time, actually. Probably since we had him on the show. Oh, just outstanding, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible. Proper talent. Proper talent.
Oh, he also photographed Morgan Freeman at a wedding. That ticks every box in my life.
Yeah, I don't think he shoots weddings anymore. But it is wonderful. I could just, yeah.
Brilliant. So books available now. Now that was a Kickstarter. So where do you get the book now?
Go to Parker Pfister's website. It's called Of Solitude, Parker J. Pfister. You'll be able to get it. Yeah.
Perfect. And we'll sort out the links on the show page as well. Right, back to your questions in a moment from Facebook. Let's go to your emails. I've got some sorting out to do in the emails, but I do have one thing. A thank you from Peter Foote on email. Hi, Kev. It's just a big thank you for mentioning Radio Garden on the podcast the other day. I looked it up, and it's a brilliant app, which I've shared with friends and family too. The interface sets it apart from anything else I've seen before. It's great to be able to find a radio station today that isn't talking about a Christmas party from 12 months ago. So he wrote this in December, obviously. But
all the irony.
I know, but it is. It's a brilliant app, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's not an app, it's a website, but yeah, it's brilliant. If you're into your kind of local radio and DAB radio, then yeah, love it.
Absolutely. Right. Back to your questions. Let's go for Facebook, Kev.
Tiago Valente. Hi, I am new in this group. I am 51 and I do weddings since 2004. I love your podcast. Makes me feel alive. That has to be the best ever intro to question.
Yeah, it is.
My subjects of preference are not the gear tech ones, but returning to vintage lenses and restarting street photography. Yeah. I learned a lot doing street photography and love to read, talk, and lessons from old photographers. It's not even a question. That's it. That's the end. Sorry. I've taken to not reading these things first now.
Oh, Kev. Do you want
to... Tiago, that was lovely, though.
It was.
Well done.
Right, go on.
Futurecast.
Find yourself a question.
Yeah, I have. First of all, I've got to try and find a nice emoji to give to Valente. I'm going to give him a heart one. Yeah. Hearts and puppies. He gets.
Right.
There we go. Right. Okay. So the next one, the name is in Greek.
Well, this is good. This is your specialist subject.
No, it's properly in Greek.
Okay.
Everything's in Greek.
Even the question?
No, the question's in English, but the name. But I think. Do you remember we had Nick, didn't we, from Greece, from Athens?
Yeah.
I think it's him.
Well, so far I think you're doing well. Nick is it Nikolaios or something like that? Is that where you're having the problem?
No, it is an R with a backwards E, with a W with a letter above it.
That's Psi.
P is something that looks like a Y.
No, that's Psi.
A small L.
Keep going.
An O, then a letter that doesn't exist. Then an O with a line through it, an alpha sign, a K, an I with a thing above it, a V, an O, and a letter that doesn't exist.
No, that's not his surname. That's the new variant of COVID.
I'm sure it's
the
Nick,
next
though.
one.
Hello, guys. Happy New Year. Don't fool yourselves by my Facebook name. Oh, there you go. Another example of me not reading it before. It's George. It's George Fakinos.
It's George Fakinos. Goodness.
Why did I think it was Nick?
It's not even Nick.
I'm useless at this. I'm going to give up.
We've only been doing it 2.5 years, Kev.
I own a Fujifilm X100F, and I'm pretty happy. However, I am about to start a new project, and I need a zoom lens. I was thinking about buying the XH1 and XF16 to 80 f4, both used from MPB. Do you think I may have a problem with lens variation? I have heard that some copies are very sharp and some very soft. Are you familiar with this problem? No, I've never heard any issues with lenses in terms of being them soft or anything like that on Fujifilm, or in fact any mirrorless systems, because they just don't they only calibrate in like the old lenses did. So no, I've never ever, I don't think I've ever come across anybody saying that their particular copy of a Fujifilm lens is soft compared to someone else's. That doesn't mean that it hasn't been a malfunctioning lens. That's just broken. Yeah, that might be a case, but I don't think there's variance between them that I've ever come across, so can't help you there.
Do you remember putting up those targets on the door, and you'd have to recalibrate your lenses, the DSLR ones?
I never did it. I just didn't do it. But yeah, I mean, you did have some lenses that just didn't make, just spend all this money and then they were just out of focus all the time, or they focus on something behind it. Make any sense? No. I'm glad they've sorted that stuff out.
Right, we've got time for one last one. Kev, read carefully. Why don't you go down this list?
Right, Robin Chun.
Right.
When setting a minimum shutter speed, 1/125th, in the 3x auto ISO setting, why does the EXIF data show the shutter speed, i.e. 1/4, 1/8, 1/60th, etc.? I don't quite understand that question. When setting the minimum shutter speed of 1/125th in the 3x auto, etc., the EXIF data show the correct shutter speed. Okay, right. So essentially, what you're doing when you're setting the minimum shutter speed is you're giving the camera a guideline for the minimum shutter speed. So the ISO is always going to be it's a fixed ceiling and floor. So if you set your ISO at between 800 and 12,800, it will not go any higher or lower. Whereas the shutter speed is only this is what I want you to achieve if you can camera setting. It can go a little bit lower than that if physically it can't get the exposure. So it will go lower than 1/125th to 1/4, 1/8, or 60th, as Robin is mentioning, and it will warn you of that in the shooting data in the LCD or in your viewfinder, because the exposure the shutter speed will appear in red rather than in blue.
Kev, top of the class. I'll go to the bottom of the class as always. Right, that's it. I've got an admission to make, Kev. I was saying, while you were answering that question very thoroughly, I was looking through the email and noticed a few things over the last couple of weeks have been filtered off into that nasty spam thing. So we do have some unanswered questions by email. Not loads and loads, but there's a few there. So apologies if you thought, hang on, I've sent something in by email, it's not been read. It will be. So there are
spam.
What was that song? Wonderful Spam. Wasn't that? That was not the Goons. What was that? Spam.
No, it was Monty Python.
Monty Python, yes.
Spam. They were ahead of their time.
My father-in-law still loves. It's a joke in the family. Soup, something, and spam, which is. For his one of his big birthdays, we just did him spam. He was absolutely he wasn't bothered about going out to a fancy restaurant. He was absolutely delighted when a plate of spam came out. No, I can't see that would be your favourite in any way, shape or form, particularly now, Kev. Right, so keep sending your emails in to click@fujicast.co.uk, click@fujicast.co.uk. If you want to send them into the Facebook, how do we do that? I know we know how, but go on. I always like
go to the Facebook group, search for Fujicast on Facebook, click become a member, and I'll click accept. And then at the top of the group, along with a lot of other stuff, is the questions for the show thread.
Brilliant, all pinned to the top. That's it for another week. So yeah, we better put on our birthday togs, Kev, because we're gonna be 3, aren't we?
3. We are indeed.
Or are we 4? I don't know.
We are 3.
Losing all these years, I don't know where we are, but we would have had a big birthday thing, wouldn't we? Really, probably would have done it at the House of. Well, that's that's me being presumptive, but it would have been nice to have done it at the House of Photography or something like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get something sorted.
Yeah, we will. But I'm not sure that we're doing anything truly different for our 3rd birthday. But can you believe that, Kev? 3
Well,
years.
you just told me to be in my birthday suit, so my birthday suit I shall be.
Or maybe not the birthday suit, Kev. I'm not sure we quite. I did the other day when I phoned Kev and he was in the bath. That felt very, very awkward. No, you tried to when you FaceTime me or something.
I butt dialed you in the bath.
Nobody needs to know anymore. See you next week, Kev. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The Fujicast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.